And peace is key to the development of nations, without which nothing can really be done, no matter where you are in Nigeria. February 11th will remain in our minds. Now a little conflict between Hausa community and the Yoruba native community in Shasha Market, Ibadan, Oyo State, ignited a spark and escalated with threatened capacity to consume the whole nation. The Shasha incident is a familiar scenario in what happened across the country. Herdsmen, farmers' clashes, kidnappings, robbery, banditry, social vices, and of course, utterances and posts on social media have fueled the crisis. These have become a contending Nigeria. Several opinions on ways out of the situation, including appeals to politicians to exhibit healthy leadership, watertight security, good governance in schools, to curb illiteracy, amidst myriad of other suggestions. But the fact still remains that peace must be sought on all fronts by all Nigerians, irrespective of status, class, to achieve and aspiring for. It is of utmost importance our governors meet constantly in search of peaceful coexistence, so that every right-thinking Nigerian should tag behind their efforts to restore love, unity, and prosperity with peace, and all hands must be on deck as the nation embarks on attitudinal change through inner strength, with the conviction that we need each other. Peace is priceless, and we all know that. Tonight, our national integration, our panel of an understanding of what might be responsible for the agitations occasioned by ethnic violence arising from such misunderstanding, and how best to resolve the situation through dialogue. What role should the media as well as leaders at all levels play to douse the tension? How do you mitigate or avert such occurrence in future? But first, let's take a backgrounder report on peace and national integration.
Confronted by Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast, banditry, kidnapping and cattle rustling in the northwest, IPOB in the southeast, and farmers-herders clashes in the north-central and other zones of the country, Nigeria's security challenges are compounded by many factors, one of which is the growing population as well as the complex nature of the country's threats, fueled by misinformation and distortion. 2020 and 2019, Nigeria's security climate was marred by violence erupting from reprisal attacks attributed to clashes between herders and farming communities, notably in Kaduna State. Widespread kidnapping, banditry, cattle rustling, and agitation by IPOB and other groups. Violence arising from the aftermath of the EndSARS protests. More recently, the violence which erupted at a market in Ibadan highlights the damaging consequences of misinformation and widespread fake news on social media, an aspect highlighted by media personality Nadia Ahmed, who in her letter to the media warned against ethnic profiling, fake news and hate speech, among others. With these threats and more, the National Security Advisor convened a meeting with the Northwest Governors Forum, heads of security, and service chiefs, who are expected to give the nation a new direction in tackling the current threats. Meeting, the need for all Nigerians to unite against insecurity was highlighted by the chairman of the forum, Governor Simon Lalong, who said peace remains the universal language regardless of religious background. To this end, it is expected that the security chiefs and heads of security agencies will continue to employ peaceful means in tackling the situation. Naja'atu Tijani, NTA News.
And national. Our phone lines will be opened in the course of the program. Please, if we're true to you, please turn down the volume of the television set in making your inputs and go straight to the point. Also tonight, you can be part of the conversation through our Twitter handle at TwitterLive NTA. In the course of the program too, we shall be doing a couple of reports. Today we are going to 3 locations: Ibadan, Jos, and Onitsha. Well, I have a team of guests spread across the country, right here in Abuja, Ibadan, and in Lagos, also via Zoom. Tonight I have joining us General IBM Haruna, former Minister of Information and Culture. Good to have you on the program tonight. Tonight we have the President, Nigeria Union of Journalists, NUJ, Chris Isigozo. Good to see you on the program. Also tonight, May Nasara Kogo Umaru, International Relations Expert.
It's always man.
Professor of joining us on the program in the Network Center. Welcome to the program. Via Zoom in Ibadan, Adebayo Shitu. Good to see you on the program.
My pleasure, my very big pleasure to be with you on this very important.
On the program today, from Lagos, we have Issa Mustafa, President, Nigerian Guild of... Welcome to the live. Rather rough start there. The audio appears to be challenging. Well, so beginning with you, General Haruna, if we say towards an enduring peace, what are we looking at?
Well, we are looking at a state of happiness, I would say, about life, absence of victimization, violence, each other, and keeping good faith with each and everyone, having hope, and being acceptably satisfied with the state of being for now, where there is a state of mind that is lucid and can look into the crystal ball, I would say, and plan for the future. There's no peace. You cannot together. Any meaningful activity that that arises from your heart and gives you and everyone some kind of joy. I think state of peace is, and I get, if a state of peace as we imagine in heaven, you will be in a state of wantlessness, satisfaction, and glory is to God the Creator, and you submit yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to the President of NUJ. Chris, well, the media is critical here, and I remember vividly one of the United States ambassador to Nigeria, Stuart Siminston, has talked about the fact that Nigeria will do a lot better in terms of attaining enduring peace if only we tap into the structure of the United States. But Nigeria is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, that can be our biggest strength if we use it well. How do you upturn this?
Well, once again, thanks a lot for having me. Even though substantial your question, I didn't get it because of the poor audio reception. But all the same, I want to join the general in appreciating his views about what peace should look like. Well, when you talk about peace, you are talking about a state of law and order, a system where law and order prevails, a system where there is justice, there is fairness, there is equity, and there is equitable distribution of common patrimony. A system where the people live in line with prevailing law and order, there is rule of law, and things are done properly. People appreciate government, government appreciates the people. Then in such scenario, you will be talking about peace. Of course, there can hardly be any peace that is perfect. But when you appreciably create an environment that is as serene as I have depicted, then you are talking about a peaceful environment. Well, going to the other part of your question, how can we take advantage of the plethora of ethnic nationalities? Let us benefit from it. Of course we can. By the time we create a conducive environment where citizens can live in and be proud that they are in a system that is working, then we can actually take advantage of our system. You know, it will benefit us. But when we continue to deliberately create a state of fear in the system, we can hardly achieve our desires. So it's important that we know what the people want. We look at their pulse, feel their pulse from time to time. That's why I like what the Security Advisor to Mr. President and the newly appointed service chiefs have introduced to go around the country across the 6 geopolitical zones to feel the pulse of the people in view of the scenario that we are facing at the moment. It's a very good one. They've already started from the northwest. By the time they traverse the 6 geopolitical zones and they get the views, the opinions of people from across the country, I want to believe by the time they return and also critically look at what they have been able to get across the country, implement same, then we would have started the process of building peace, harmony, social cohesion in the system.
The president just said, peace in itself has a lot of components. In building it, we look at it from 2 perspectives. We have what termed negative peace, we have what is termed positive peace. In building the 2, there's always attrition, but all managing towards one direction. How do you unfold this? Well, if you can hear me, Nasara, what I mean is take reference from what the NUJ president just building. You have
to go back and see the historical, sociological, and demographic records of the country. Nigeria has witnessed the hills and the valleys when you come to the question of peace, because peace is the humdinger of the development and the progression of any society. This year we are celebrating 60 years of Nigeria's independence. That number 60 is very significant in the history of Nigeria, because from 1960 to 2020 is exactly 60 years. 60 years earlier talks about the January 1st, 1900, when the colonialists came. January 1st, 1900 to October 1st, 1960, 60 years. October 1st to October 2020, another 60 years. Earlier than the coming of the colonialists, we had this period of 1840 to 1900. And that was a time when there was a lot of, what do I call it, missionary activities, as well as exploration of the hinterland of Africa. And 60 years earlier than that time was the time when we witnessed the scramble and partition at the same time simultaneously with the trans-Saharan trade routes. And 60 years much earlier than that was the time when we were witnessing antecedents of inter-territorial wars. Wars between one kingdom and the other, wars between one community and the other. Now, we are witnessing this at this material time simply because Nigerians have resolutely united that they want to progress. All these upheavals we are seeing, crisis, ethnocentric kind of divisions between one community or the other, between one tribe or the other, is rooted upon our inability to understand the constitutional arrangements. The constitutional arrangements of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is one of the best you can find anywhere in the world, starting with Section 21 that talks about the culture. We have a culture in Nigeria, a culture of living in peace and harmony with one another, a culture that talks about the originality of man, the originality of every man having come from Adam and Eve, the originality of every religion having come from Prophet Abraham, the originality of the totality of the Nigerian people having been people that have common heritage, common togetherness, common history, and common belonging. So man is in part is in the efforts of continuous struggle towards attainment of living, that he talks about trying to overshadow or trying to overlap the efforts of one another. Nigeria has witnessed a lot of things if you take from 1960 to date, especially the incidents of 1967 to 1970, where we lost over 3 million citizens, where we spent over 30 months of consistent fight. At the end of it, we ended up more united, more robust, more socially amiable, and we embrace each other as no winner, no vanquished. At the end of it, several other leaders up to the leadership of today contributed in trying to bring about the prevalence of peace on the land. Remarkably speaking, and most outstandingly, I must recognize the efforts of General Gawan. He is still alive. He needs to be appreciated better than we are appreciating him. This is a gallant soldier that has dedicated the entirety of his life and his intellect and gallantry for the unity of Nigeria. There are several other people. One of them is even on the panel today, General IBM Haruna. We must recognize that. You must also take into cognizance some other people, like the great Ikemba. He too embraced peace later on. He was pardoned. He embraced peace. At the end of it, he continued preaching the gospel of peace up to the time God took him away back to him. And at the same time, people like General Murtala, Metamasule, Shehu Shagari, let Zik, let Obafemi Awolo, all these people in their little or bigger responsibilities, they contributed towards having peace for the Nigerian nation. Coming into even those people that are alive, talking about the likes of General T.Y. Juma, General Chief Mbazuluki Amechi is still alive. I think he's one of the few ministers remaining, talking about people like Emeka Anyaku talking about, even the people like Haruna Meyasin, the Sarkin Sasa, where the unfortunate incident happened. These people have dedicated themselves into seeing peace and unity. And there are, of course, a handful of traditional rulers talking about the Alafin of Oyo, for example, the Oni of Ife, the Sultan of Sokoto. So all of them, the Oni of the Obi of Onitsha, these people have dedicated themselves to the unity and prosperity of the nation, because Nigeria is an indivisible and indissoluble country as per the provisions of sections 1 and 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And at the same time, the government's primary responsibility as far as sections 14 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is trying to bring about peace and security for the citizenry. Peace and security so that we attain the motto of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as per section 15 subsection 1 of the Constitution that talks about unity and faith, peace and progress. And that is the reason why the same section 15 went about under sections 2 and 3, and at the same time section 17 to 1 and 2 says that it is mandatory, it is necessary on the government.
Perspectives. Let's go to Enugu before we go to Ibadan. Listening to what other guests have said so far, let's build backwards. Are we in tune with dreams of our fathers?
Thank you and good evening once again. I believe the question was how we could understand the differences between our founding fathers and what obtains now. Let me start by saying that peace and unity are two mutually inclusive items. That means one leads to the other. They cannot exist in isolation. And again, let me put it in perspective. It is important for us to understand that peace and unity are sacrosanct when it comes to Nigeria as an indissoluble and indivisible country, because these items are already enshrined in their own coat of arms. So it should be very, very well understood that the founding fathers wanted peace and unity to be in this very entity called Nigeria. And that is why the great Zik of Africa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe of blessed memory, said that it was not important to him who was going to be the president of Nigeria at independence. But what he was interested in was that Nigeria should be one indivisible country. Then again, let us try to understand that this very item has remained exclusive and inclusive in the factor, because even the present administration under President Muhammad Buhari has done extensively well in trying to unite the country. I remember that in the past there was this avenue that most of the people who are in government should go to their own locations to talk to their youths to prevent the restiveness of the youths. Of course, there is this important thing that we should understand, that the voice of man is the voice of God, voice populi, voice Dei. That is important, that people should be listened to when they cry out. And government has done very well in this regard. Let me also try to itemize things in order of happenings, in the chronology, in the way they took place. Now, remember the NSAS protest, which happened some weeks ago and some months ago. And some of these restive youths have remained, on the low ebb of the society, trying to make their mind to be heard and their voices to be heard. And government should also do more, because to live an era unfiltered is to encourage intellectual immorality, according to Karl Marx. It is important that government should put infrastructure in place, paraphernalia in place in terms of security architecture, to put these youths under the right atmosphere that will make them understand how things are done. I will also want to commend Nigerians. Nigerians are very, very resilient people. I said it on this program on national TV during the independence anniversary, that Nigerians love themselves so much when they meet outside the shores of this country. But this issue of divisiveness always comes to play when we are in this country. But of course, we cannot blame ourselves, because when a father or a mother has many children, it's important that people should try to live, cohesively, and then try to understand each other's differences or one another's differences. Now, again, Nigeria has, remained on this very hot shell for a very long time. But I believe that government has done tremendously well in this regard as well. But again, the change of service chiefs some weeks ago was also very well welcome, because the government knew that this is important to touch the lives of people in this very area, because security and peace are primary efforts of government to make sure that people live harmoniously without any rancor. But of course, let me also try to divorce this very action of peace, because total peace does not mean absence of war. That means if there will be peace, there must be a way of discussing, because that is why you have the courts. You have the ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. That means people can resolve their disputes peacefully and come back to terms. Of course, the United Nations, which was established in 1945, in the wake of the dissolution of the League of Nations, was established as a peaceful organization. But of course, they have the military arm, which means that you must use that very effort to bring about peace. So I believe that it is important Nigerians should imbibe this peaceful culture to live as one entity, because there's unity in diversity. Like the earlier speakers have said, we have multicultural society, multi-ethnic society, and of course, this should be an advantage to Nigeria and Nigerians as well. So when we imbibe this very culture, we're going to move far beyond the of this country, positive efforts, because of course where there's political equilibrium, there must be good economic development. Where if this political equanimity is eventually upturned or turned over, then eventually we have problems in our hands, and that will result in a quagmirish economy, which means people begin to fend for themselves without having to make necessary inputs. Then of course government has a role. In fact, government is the last arbiter here, which of course we have to assemble all factions who think they are disgruntled or they are in one way or the other have been mismanaged, disadvantaged. Let me put it also in very clear terms, that the different ethnic groups, the major ethnic groups, Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa, have done very well, especially with the Ohanese Igbo, the Fenifere, and the Arewa. These are all unifying factors that Nigeria has already enjoyed over the years. I believe government can start talking with these people, in different capacities, so that they can reach the grassroots and make people to understand that there's unity in diversity. There's nothing that we can gain by going to war. There should be peace, peace, and not war.
But not last, but let's go to Lagos now, where the president of Nigerian Guild of Editors joins us via Zoom. Mustafa, well, you have listened to other person's perspective. Let's get your perspective in the opening of this issue.
Like life. I've listened to my fellow panelists. I think they all spoke well. The truth of the matter is that if you look at the motto of Nigeria, the coat of arms, it said unity, peace, and progress. So you cannot separate the four of them. Without unity, there's no way there can be progress, in any nation. But again, how do you achieve that peace? Can you achieve it without hammering on the issue of justice? Is it possible? Can you do that without giving all the sections of the country that sense of justice, that sense of belonging? Does the government listen to the people? I'm happy that just yesterday the federal government started the dialogue with different zones, starting from Northwest. The meeting I had in Kaduna yesterday. Very good move, really, because we constantly talk, dialogue. But after the dialogue, what happens? Does the government take into account what they collate or they hear from the people? It's very basic. Because, you talk to the people. The people now say, this is what we want. You go back to your office, analyze. I think Nigerians don't really want to separate or go their separate ways. But they have the right to complain. But after that complaint, what happens? So the government listen really. It's very key. It's very key. So because I have friends from all over the country. Hausa, Yoruba. My uncle has a house in Soya in Lagos. We have different tenants from different parts of the country. They live together harmoniously. When one of them, the father dies or the mother dies, they gather together, they go to the person's community and be part of the burial. Because whether it's Igbo, Yoruba, they won't go. No, that is not true. The common Nigerians are united. They want to live together. But sometimes the politicians, want to use this issue of ethnicity, religion, to divide Nigerians. That is where the media comes in. Here, of course, I'm a member. I think we should not give room for these ethnic entrepreneurs or those who hammer on our fault lines. We should not be there for this anymore. If you want to air your view, please, you should not include the issue of ethnicity and religion. To me, ethnicity is not something that we talk about because, number one, there's no democracy in heaven. God does not ask you to choose your ethnic origin. It's not your choice. God makes that choice for you. So why should you, on the basis of that, discriminate against me? If you do that, you are working against God. You know, I didn't choose to call from Edo. Perhaps from there. That is the choice of God for me. That is why I put on my Facebook. I said, please, if you want to send me anything on Facebook or whatever, the social media platforms, please. If you have to do with ethnicity or religion, please don't send it to me. You know, please, there are some people in Nigeria today. What they do is just they look for ways to create more disunity. You see them forwarding all manner of stories, gory pictures, just to create crisis. There are some people in Nigeria who do that. Then how do we checkmate them? But I believe that those who want us to be united are more than those who want us divided. You know, we keep hammering on our fault lines. Every nation has its own fault lines. Of course, Nigeria is we are multi-ethnic, we are multi-religions, but it's fine. That's the way God wants it to be. But we can also explore and exploit this division and make us a great nation. It's possible. It's very possible. So that's why let me tell you, you know, we are one. That doesn't mean that we do not have that differences. Of course we do. But how do we handle the differences to make Nigeria a better nation? That's what we should hammer about. But government has a great role to play. You know, please, you know, in your policies, in your utterances, please always give every part of this country that sense of belonging.
Meanwhile, let's go to Ibadan, where former Minister of Communications Adebayo Ashitu is joining us via Zoom. Well, you are right at the center where the latest development came up. The Shasha incident is very, very fresh in our memories. But we know a couple of steps have been taken. Governors have been there. They have visited the site. And let's just say, what is the situation like in Oyo State, Ibadan? Please.
That are those which resulted in losses. I've had the privilege of being legal advisor to the Shasha Market Traders Association for more than 15 years. And I know that there had been crisis between the majority house community. On the one side,
I believe maybe the signals, if they put the signal through, we'll get back to Chief Adebayo Ashitu, former Minister of Communications, who joined us via Zoom in Ibadan. Well, losing the signals from Ibadan, let me stay with the NUJ President before coming to General IBM Haruna. Mr. President, now, from what we have heard from the opening segment, the media plays a crucial role here. Most often, it looks as though the media is used as a battleground for crisis whenever there are crisis issues that require peace building. Rather than use the media to cement it, they use us to balkanize or even make it impossible. Does it pose a challenge? Are you working towards this? Do you see it as a problem?
Okay, well, thank you. Well, once again, the audio wasn't really clear, but somehow I got a few things from what you said. I don't seem to completely agree with you that the media in singular is complicit in this obvious attempt by some people who don't believe in the
continued peaceful coexistence of Nigerians. Well, if you look at the reality on ground, the media, but for their roles, perhaps we would have long gone our separate ways. But for the role the media has been playing over time, the problem would have escalated beyond the level where it is. And that's the reality. Quite recently, there is this dangerous pandemic that has enveloped the rest of us, not just in Nigeria, and that is the pandemic of fake news. Obviously, some political actors have consistently hidden under this spread dissemination of fake news to cause disharmony, division in the system. Like I said from the beginning, the media is not complicit. We had behind the camera discussion before this program started with one of you here. And of course, he expressed his worries, which to some extent I shared his concerns about the level political actors seem to be turning the media, using the media to create gulf, to create crisis in the system. But I can tell you that as professionals, we remain committed to championing a cause that would promote peace, unity, harmony in the country. And that is the truth. If the media as presently constituted flow with the tide, flow with the information that is daily made available to us by different political groupings, political actors, political interest groups, and what have you, maybe by now the country would have caught fire. But we have said no to such trends, because no matter what we do, we have only but one country that we can call our own, and that's Nigeria. No matter the comfort you seem to enjoy when you travel outside, go to America, go to Europe, go to Asia, you would always go about with your passport. You can't drop it. But in Nigeria, that's where you move freely. So we are not going to make ourselves available as willing tools to be used by political actors to destroy this system. Rather than blame the media, we should blame politicians. Like the NGE president did say, oftentimes you see politicians with one idea or the other, they try to cause disaffection. But for us in the media, I must tell you that we remain committed to enthroning peace and unity. And that's why from the outset, we declared our position clearly to support the government in stamping out the incidents of fake news, the prevalence of fake news from our system. And we have always done that clearly, because we understand the terrifying impact of this pandemic in our national life. Most of the communal crisis you talk about, religious crisis we witness today, intra-ethnic crisis, most of them are as a result of paucity of information, and in some cases, fake news. And that's why, as professionals have always said it, no journalist that is worth its onion would encourage the dissemination of fake news. So I can tell you clearly that we are not instruments, we are not tools in the hands of politicians. Yes, we operate liberal democracy and, of course, free speech, freedom of expression, and what have you. But I must make it very clear that there is nobody that believes in this country, that would continue to indulge in acts that would culminate in parcellating Nigeria.
we don't do that. And any politician or political actor that we discover that is tilted towards that direction, of course, I can assure you that as media professionals who have paid the supreme price at different times, at different, Prof took time to go through the historical, go down memory lane about this country. We have paid the price, and we are not going to align with people who don't wish this country, well. So I can tell you, we are not instruments, we are not tools in the hands of political actors, and we will not encourage them in any way possible.
Thank you. I hear the signal from Ibadan via Zoom, where former Minister of Communication joined us, Adebayo Ashitu, is up now. Let's get back to him so that we get the latest in terms of so far what has been done, because the epicenter of the latest is Shasha in Oyo State. So from what I asked, what's the update? Well, it's quite a challenge there. Well, back, General Aduma, you have heard the opening thoughts. Yes. And from the perspective of the NGO president, most often when you talk about during times like this, the media is critical, you are able to open up. But the other aspect of it is money and conscience. Most often, he has consistently emphasized political actors, and most often Nigerians maybe they are not privileged to know the consequences. You offer them money, they go haywire.
Well, he raised some of the traditional issues that question the media. Politicians, yes, they can influence the media, but the media themselves in this global world that we're in, they operate not in a vacuum. They operate with the influences other than those of our politicians, of their owners, their proprietors, their patrons, and the objectives for which they have been set the trajectory of what influences their communication, their thought, their objectives. So the media cannot be said that they are independent or solely neutral in their reportage. Certainly we have seen some preference in the reporting of various incidents. So, and of course, as a result, there are borderline partial reporting. And there are those that are tainted or manipulated in order to create a kind of atmosphere which can create division and unity, or can encourage the search for amity. But in many cases, the facts are put out there, but they are not always dressed as facts and evidence. They are sometimes camouflaged and twisted in order to deflect the true import of the incident.
But the fact he raises is that media thrives on ethics, and he has insisted that any journalist worth his salt will not allow himself to be used. And the question I ask is, most often besides media, money plays a crucial role in a move by some person to balkanize the country. So what message will you have for Nigerians who are vulnerable to collecting money to cause mayhem?
Yes, it is money. It is the capital one invests in the media, and one who invests in it wants something out of it. So you either invest in the media as a politician or as an investor, and therefore you have capital interest and some benefits that should accrue, or that you leave the journalists to act according to their conscience. But they are not free, just as the politicians are not free. They have to succumb to the directions of their party, to the objectives of their party. And they have internal bias as regards how to interpret an event. Similarly, journalists use the language of reportage to create impressions that favors their perspective of an event. There are many examples. They are not in the business of media mainly to propagate news or as fact. The interpretation of it or the influencing of the perception has some objectives which are often not clear, but come in the process of the developing events.
Okay, let's go to Ms. Nassar. Ms. Nassar, before I go to Enugu, what's your perspective regarding money and being the agent of creating violence in the country?
No nation develops higher than the efficacy of the professionalism of its media. The Constitution, precisely Section 22, talks about the role of the media. The role of the media as a veritable tool in nation building. As a matter of fact, that is the reason why it is called the fourth estate of the realm. Any nation that did not accord the disposition of nationalism and statesmanship to the media industry is doomed. The media is the pivotal of any development of any nation. When you look at the Constitution, for example, sections 38, 39 up to 40, telling it would, even starting from sections 33, 34, 35, down to 45, all those provisions of the fundamental rights, the right to speech, the right to freedom of expression, the right to freedom of movement, whatever, the foundational basis upon which those rights can be benefited by the citizenry is the media. The media is the midwife in between the government and the governed. It is the media that will be able to exhume and ventilate the interests and aspirations of the citizenry and communicate some to the government. And the media is the one to set agenda for the government, either agenda for development or agenda for violence. In Nigeria, so far so good. Right from pre-colonial days, the media has been at the forefront of the entrenchment of the supremacy of national unity over and above any other petty primordial sentiments. The media has been performing professionally. The government has institutions. The National Broadcasting Commission is there. The Federal Ministry of Information and Culture is there. The Ministry of Communication is there. All these institutions are supposed to serve as the regulatory bodies upon which they will set the media on the correct pedestal. So the blame should not so much be on the media. Supposing the media is going off the track, for example, what about the ability of the government to inflict penalties? What about the ability of the government to inflict sanctions? In a situation whereby the government allows everybody to do whatever he wants without checkmating him, without sanctions, without appropriate penalty, and without commensurate appraisal of the good things the media is doing. Not only the media, every person that is doing the good thing The government should think of appreciating that. In those days when you are in the media or where you are a politician, the quantum of the national service you will do will be predicated upon the degree of your own good relationship with the media. And it is the media that will be able to bring out those personalities, those individuals that are adjudged, quote and unquote, elder statesmen. Where everybody would like to be a statesman, there should be reward for good thing as well as there should be penalty for bad thing. And nowadays, in the contemporary days, you hardly get issue of reward. Even the ordinary, national honors for somebody that is doing good for the country, whether he is in the media circle, in the military circle, in the political circle, in the economic circle, you don't hear of those things. The government should really be up and doing and make the regulatory agencies, the National Orientation Agency is there. Nigeria is fundamentally built on ethics as per Section 21 of the Constitution. And the Constitution has provided as per Section 23, the ethics, and Section 24, the fundamental duties on the citizenry. Those things the citizens should do. And it is the media that will be bringing out those things through the instrumentality of its own establishment. And at the same time, it is the responsibility of the media to be bringing out to government. For example, under Section 15 subsection 2, under Section 15 subsection 3 and 4, it is the onerous responsibility on the government to encourage national integration. It is the responsibility of the government to encourage national inclusiveness in the way it governs the people. It is the responsibility of the media to bring out those things that the government is not doing, the torchlight of which should be the search for navigation of the roads for the nationhood towards development, towards peace, towards harmony, towards cohesion. So the media, as far as I'm concerned, my appraisal for the media is very, very good. The governmental media is doing excellently well. The private media too, you should appreciate their disposition of patriotism, because for people to come and be investing in order for Nigeria to have a balanced reportage. The reportage, in other words, from the angle of the government media and from the angle of the private citizens media, is a very good and welcome development. Every nation in the world, when you go, it is the refusal to imbibe the doctrine of media independence that brings about distortion of news, that bring about many things. Incidents like the case of Somalia, Rwanda, the case of Sudan, the case of Bosnia-Herzegovina, the case of Ottoman Empire that is even completely wiped away. It is because of the neglect of checkmating that the media is doing. If we remember, for example, even the First World War, it was caused as a result of the assassination of Archduke Fernando at Sarajevo that caused about that one, the retaliation, the distortion of facts, and the rest. And at the same time, that led up to even the Second World War, the propaganda propagated by the media, especially the one in Germany, that all the sanctions of the League of Nations are against Germany. So, essentially speaking, what I'm saying is that no nation can succeed without the cooperation and the support of the media. The media is the pivotal upon which you will be able to get the input and output methodology of corrective governance in any nation.
Yeah, the signal from Ibadan is true now. Can we go to Adeba Ashitu for updates of developments there? Well, let's go to Enugu, where Naji, if you can hear me clearly, we have hinged on the media, the pros and the cons. Let's look at the people. Besides the fact that the elites play a role, the people are vulnerable, and I keep asking this, maybe you will address it in proper perspective. Money and vulnerability towards disharmony in Nigeria, the role of money. The role of money.
It's very pertinent to note that money has influenced most of the attitudes of people over the years. But is that the right direction? The answer is no. Now, let us try to understand what money has done that has eventually put the country into this abysmal low. Now, during the elections and after the elections and during all forms of canvassing, which the country normally passes through, we see that money plays a role. The reason is that a lot of people are either ignorant or they are willfully committing this very offense. But if they are ignorant, I think I also have to, ask the media to up their game, because Most times, people are ignorant because they don't have access to, reading materials, or they don't have the right information to, rely on when it comes to acquainting themselves with the right information. Now, it is important that media should be very up and doing in this regard, because we have these official media, the organized ones and the unorganized ones. Talking about the social media, where we have this infodemic, which has, of course, has caused a lot of problems in the society. So we need to dissociate these two types of media, because when we are relying on information from the organized media, it should be well articulated to enforce and to enlighten the public and the people about the right things to do and at the right time. Of course, it is not written, but it's an unwritten fact that the media constitutes part of governance, because the media is inexorably linked to good governance. If a particular government structure is not doing well, it is the media that will expose the inabilities of these very governments. So we encourage media to bring out these facts when it comes to bribing and any form of monetary gratification that will influence people to do the negative things, that people should eschew and abhor such ineffective ways of living in a country. Because if you collect money to do something that is awful, eventually the whole thing will come back to haunt the same person who has committed or perpetrated this very ill. So I believe that Nigerians should be very much aware that money and the factors relating to money are not consistent with good governance and good followership. Because when you have good governance, of course, it goes without saying that you have good followership. Now again, Nigerians have been able to define these media forms of dissemination of information in terms of the organized and the unorganized media, because a lot of Nigerians now can see it, especially with the regular internet subscription, sit in the comfort of their homes and dish out information. So, but people should be able to articulate these facts and to know whether these facts are actually right or they are misleading, because these things are garbage in, garbage out. So when people cannot substantiate the origins of news, they should eventually jettison, because in the end, people will become the Flosam and Jessam of fake news. So I believe that Nigeria has come a long way when it comes to publicity and dissemination of information, because the Nigerian Television Authority has existed long before anyone thought of having television in Africa. So it's a good kudos to Nigerian government and the antecedents. Now, but of course, we should use some of these things as avenues of enriching our culture, and then of course, enforcing and solidifying our base to get the facts, around the governance of the people by eschewing this, gratification in terms of money, so that people do things in a principled and more organized manner.
Thank you so much. Let's now go to Ibadan. Up now. Ask you differently, if you can hear me, Chief Adeba Shitu. We know you are the center, but quickly we are progressing already. What would you say is the role of the social media in all this?
Thank you. Fortunately, we have a social media in Nigeria which is very active and which is accessible to all kinds and manners of people. Gone are the days when journalists had to be trained before they were recognized and before they could practice as journalists. Today, unfortunately, because of the preponderance of the social media, virtually everybody has become a journalist, and a lot of people who are ill-informed about situations get a lot of inputs into the social media, most of which do not have any basis in facts. So the situation of our social media in Nigeria has become, very dangerous for the maintenance of law and order in Nigeria, because a lot of tendacious information are always put up on social media without verification, and because a lot of people believe things so easily, there is a tendency for most people to react negatively to false information. That, of course, have negative impact on the sustenance of law and order in society. I recall that the government at the time wanted to pass a law through the National Assembly to regulate social media. Unfortunately, most people, particularly journalists, were the first to attack the effort of government. But now we can see the very negative and very dangerous impact that unregulated social media has had towards, the preponderance of insecurity in our country. If you take, for instance, what happened in Shasha, the initial action occurred on a Friday where one person was said to have been slapped and he died. And before it, all kinds of old photographs and pictures were thrown into the social media to whip up sentiment, and a lot of people took this hook, line, and sinker and started reacting. At the end of the day, more than 25 people were killed in Shasha over a very needless crisis. So I want to believe that government cannot afford to abandon its responsibility towards ensuring national security by shying away from making effort to regulate, the social media, such that those who put up falsehood, which is capable of, bringing about insecurity in the country or in the society, must be held responsible for the consequences of their indiscretions. So I am, appealing very strongly that government cannot afford to shy away from its initial effort to bring about regulation to social media. The other thing I think government has to do is to also be preemptive. I know that there's nothing negative which would have happened in Nigeria without the State Security Service having full knowledge of it. When these pieces of information are passed to government, government must have the political will to act, immediately to, the security intelligence that they have. In situations where government dilly-dallies after the receipt of intelligence which is reliable from the security forces, the consequence of it would be, the type of hullabaloo that we had in Shasha. So in a way, I think government must also be held responsible for not doing enough, in reacting to intelligence which points to breakdown of law and order. Thank you.
Okay, well, once again, we're taking a good look at peace and national integration. We'll take a break. When we come back from the break, we'll take some reports and sustain the conversation afterwards. Stay with us.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
The Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria is here to help you succeed. Smedan gives you entrepreneurship training that will make your business grow big. It can create access to finance. Smedan can help you prepare a good feasibility study and link you up with the finance institutions that will fund your business. It can also create access to market through local and international trade fairs, opportunity fairs, and exhibitions. Smedan also organizes programs to identify innovative entrepreneurs and promote their business ideas. Contact us at Plot 35, Port Harcourt Crescent, Area 11, Garaki, Abuja, or visit our website www.smedan.gov.ng.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth Entrepreneurship Support Years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned, and we'll take a couple of reports, then we go to Lagos, where we are being joined via Zoom by the President of Nigerian Guild of Artists. And we're beginning with Ibadan. Nigerians have been urged to tolerate one another and maintain the unity in diversity in order to promote a peaceful environment for development. That is the consensus opinion from the report from Ibadan.
In recent times, there have been suspicious behavioral patterns among different ethnic groups, leading to unwarranted utterances. On some other occasions, there have been destructive tendencies, which continue to make many wonder where the issue of unity in diversity in the country is being placed. Some observers said this act is dangerous to the socio-economic well-being of the nation.
Government needs to take urgent action now in mopping weapons from among the civil populace. There are so many, guns now around that, people can do anything, terrorizing other people. So the government should take urgent actions. But above all, our people should continue to live in love. They should show love to their neighbors. They should show love to their other ethnic groups, because we are all human beings.
The essence of governance is to provide adequate security for its people. Government at different levels must wake up. Security must be taken as priority. We've not done anything.
If we want religion to continue to be relevant amidst us, we need to be scripture compliant. No religion teaches evil. And evil, keeping of good neighborliness, is the bedrock of religious worship.
Governor of Kebbi State, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, also have this to say on the development.
We are pleased that we saw Nigerians of all tribes in the market conducting their activity, which is evidence of return of normalcy. In fact, we saw onion sellers from different states, including Kebbi, Zamfara, and Sokoto, and Nigerians of other states.
There is no doubt that Nigeria thrives hard in unity in diversity.
Our next report is coming from Jos, where the major stakeholders are strategizing on ways of improving on the present security situation and emphasizing ethnic and religious differences.
Plateau State has had a fair share of the weight of insecurity, with incessant destruction of lives and property. For this reason, key players are re-strategizing on measures to forestall reoccurrence and promotion of values encapsulated in the state's slogan, Home of Peace and Tourism. From ethno-religious crises to herders-farmers clashes and then to insurgency banditry, the ugly faces have robbed the society of peace.
This country needs healing. This country needs unity. And if our model, from what we have seen, is anything to go by, I personally would even plead with Mr. President to consider setting up a national peace commission that will work closely with this kind of state institutional arrangements for conflict prevention and peace building, saddle them with the responsibility of working with ordinary communities at the grassroots levels to be able to do extraordinary things for peace.
We must learn to live together. God created this country not for only Christians, nor for Muslims alone, not for the Northerners or the Southerners alone, but that we must tolerate each other. We must learn to live in peace with one another.
Unity means tolerance. Unity means accommodating.
Stakeholders say initiatives at ensuring lasting peace is the way forward.
Where tackling insecurity, equitable distribution of national resources, standardization and reorientation are some of the measures identified by respondents in Onitsha.
For some time now, insecurity and other social vices have been a major challenge threatening the peace and unity of the nation. In spite of efforts by governments to address the menace, stakeholders in Onitsha who applauded the various initiatives of government called for more proactive measures from leaders at all levels.
In fact, everybody has a role to play for us to achieve total unity. We must eschew any sense of discrimination. We must eschew ethnicity. We must do away with religion, actually.
Marginalization is too much. So I need the equity and the fairness.
Security is number one, because any place that security is not there, many things are involved. It will bring hunger. It will bring disunity.
They express hope that Nigeria is on the path of progress if the youths are properly channeled to stem cases of unrest in parts of the country.
With Onitsha Report, we begin this segment with us going to Lagos, where the president of Nigerian Guild of Editors, Issa, has been waiting. Issa, well, the network has been a bit difficult, but quickly, listening to Kebbi State Governor reacting in Ibadan, he talked about the fact that Nigeria should look beyond tribes. So what do you make of this mentality of indigenship all of the times? Well, let me parry that to you, General Haruna. The issue of indigenship. You heard the Kebbi State Governor reacting. They're saying that they went to the market and they found people from all tribes in the market. Yet, one of the planks where people hinge on to use to balkanize or attempt to balkanize the country is the issue of indigenship. Where do you come from?
Yes, well, I will answer that by flanking. 3 highlights of issues I want to raise in connection with that. The first is to do with the elite disharmony, which you mentioned earlier. I think so long as our elites are kleptocratic and recycle those values from what is generally called corruption, so long with society and the generality of the people will be very skeptical about our peace and unity, because those who are at the helm of affairs are going about it with the wrong values. And those kleptocratic values taken from public purse are recycled and create the values from which you create the generation of successors. And that cannot make for peace, because the elite have gathered everything for themselves and redistributed to only those who are of their kind. So those who are poor, who are downtrodden, who have no access to education or the good things of life, will continue to be downtrodden, and it does not make for harmony or peace. The second issue I want to highlight is to do with the free distribution or holding, which has been mentioned earlier, that there must be control, there must be proper license, there must be control of importation of arms, the licensing of those who are authorized to have arms, and the control of its use. I think we have lacked that, to the extent that they say that migrant Fulanis are carrying AK-40, the AK rifles freely. So I think that I agree with the contribution earlier that there must be mopping up of small arms. Okay. I wouldn't agree that, as suggested by our Governor Autumn, I think wants everyone to carry arms, to be licensed to carry arms. I don't think that is a solution. It will lead us more to the combative attitude which we already have, and the hate the hate motives in our communication or in dressing up evolving situations. Okay. Then thirdly, I think that with our Constitution, together with the Land Use Act, which has placed land in trust with all the governors and the Federal Capital Treaty Minister, I think they have not been up and doing with their committees that should demarcate, allocate the use of land, whether as a forest or for grazing, open grazing, or for the new system that is being talked about. I think that governments has totally failed in this issue of land management and land use. And yet it is in the Constitution. If, for example, the Ondo incident and territory had been up and doing with respect to land allocation and land use, you will not get this kind of satellite settlements completely in defiance of the laws. Because right from the onset, policing the land use would make sure that nobody abuses the instant land use of the area. And this is clearly in our Constitution, by virtue of the Land Use Act, a role for the governors and the minister. And I think they must seriously look at that, because it has led to this conflict, which has threatened the general security and the unity of this country. The laws are there, but those who are managing the country should invoke the law when it is appropriate, and also manage the properties of the state in accordance with the law.
Okay. President NUJ, back to you. You've been silent in a while, and looking at what General Haruna just said, national goals are most times driven by institutions, but at times part of the problem has been tied to the fact that individuals tend to almost drive national goals. So what role would it be like if institutions are strengthened and they are driven appropriately? Would it work?
Okay. Well, before I go to the direct message or question you've raised, I want to quickly respond to what the former Minister of Communications, Adebayo Shitu, said earlier while he was making his own contribution from Ibadan. Well, he talked about the journalists rising against attempts by government to regulate the social media. Well, however, he came from a different perspective. I must say that indeed the Nigerian Union of Journalists and of course the Guild of Editors and other media organizations, we indeed came together against the social media bill, and I think there's another bill, two of them, that came up at the National Assembly, the Senate to be precise. We felt that those bills were really constituted needless proliferation, because we have existing laws. We have the Criminal Code, we have the Penal Code, we have the Cybercrime Act of 2015. And if you go through these existing laws, you will see that the contents, the principles of the bills that were championed by two senators at the National Assembly, we are merely repeating the same things that these other existing laws already have. And we felt that we didn't need to dissipate energy, time, resources, continue to proliferate laws. All we needed to do is, if we have areas we felt that we needed to give the laws bites so that they will be more effective, we put them, we amend. That's why there is always that provision for review, for amendment, so that the laws will come to terms with the realities on ground. So that's why we stood against those bills. Another issue is, while you are making an attempt at regulating the social media, I also have severally said it, that you don't regulate the end users. For instance, you have bags of rice in the market. Your regulation starts from the point of taking the number of bags of rice to the market, and not to regulate somebody that has already bought several bags and taken to his house. So you cannot regulate the end user. If you want to regulate, interface with the owners of these platforms, the social media platforms. You have the Facebook, the Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, and the rest of them. So that by the time they post things that are not in conformity with promotion of unity, peace, harmony in your own system, they would always know how to handle that. That is the position the AUJ took then, and we still stand by that position today. Well, going straight to the issue you've raised about building institutions, it's always important that we build strong institutions in our system. Because when you build weak institutions and you have unwittingly created very strong individuals, the system will suffer, because they would descend on the weak institutions, and your guess is as good as mine. That's why if you look at some other, well, let me say developed climes, we saw what happened in the United States quite recently. If it were some other places, the entire country would have collapsed. But no matter what happened in the United States, we remember the January 6th Capitol attack and the rest of them, democracy still prevailed. Why? Because they've succeeded in building strong institutions. And these institutions are institutions that now drive governance. But in a situation we still continue to totter, continue to operate very weak institutions. That's why when you talk about of course, looking at the Constitution, trying to review the system, trying to devolve power, trying to, it becomes very, very important, because the present scenario as presently obtains does not seem to be in tandem with the realities, with the yearnings and aspirations of the people. And by the time you continue to drive it down their throats that it must be that way, of course it will be difficult to achieve that peaceful coexistence. It will be difficult to achieve that harmony that you desire. Well, one of the contributors did say that it will be difficult to entrench peace without first ensuring there is justice. In the absence of justice, in the absence of equity, in the absence of fair play, fairness, in the absence of equitable distribution of common patrimony, there can hardly be peace. Once again, I want to applaud the security chiefs for initiating the process of this interface. That is a very good one. After all, democracy is about the people. If you alienate the people from the process of governance in a democracy, then democracy in itself has taken flight. That's why the people must be effectively integrated in the process of governance. You must know their feelings, you must know their yearnings, you must know their aspirations. That way, you would have started the process of building peace. So I still insist, time has come for us, both the government and the governed, to begin the process of building very strong institutions, because these institutions will help. It will on its own regulate the activities of operators of these institutions. If we continue to treat it with levity, if we continue to play the ostrich, then it means that we are not serious. We are not yet ready to drive that process which we earnestly desire.
The other problem happens to be the challenge of religion. Tolerance has remained a problem. We trump up religion all of the time. The Shasha example clearly speaks to that. What do you make of this?
Well, religion is not so much a problem, because Section 10 of the Constitution has already settled that matter, that there is no provision of state religion in the nation. And the most important thing is for those in the helm of authority to be able to be educated regarding the various provisions of the Constitution. If you take the provision of the Constitution, Sections 14, Section 15, Section 17, Section 20, 21, 23, 24, Section 34 down to 41, And if you take the provisions especially of sections 214 to 218, and particularly section 153, the totality of these sections talks about anything that is repugnant to national interest should not be tolerated in the governance of Nigeria. Specifically speaking, when you take section 15, subsection 4, it says that loyalty for every citizen of the Federation, particularly those in authority, is to the nation, and any primordial consideration, whether ethnic, whether tribal, whether religious, should be jettisoned in favor of the national interest. And that is the reason why even when you take section 14, subsection 3, it talks about the national interest of federal character. The national interest of federal character in the way will be governed. In fact, all these provisions I talk about, they are talking basically about one word: justice for the common benefit of all the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There must be no consideration regarding either you put the issue of affinity, the issue of where place of belonging, the issue of your religion, the issue of tribal, the issue of whatever consideration. The interest of the nation should be uppermost, over and above any other decision. Bearing in mind that the oath of office for any Mr. Somebody is taken, whether it's His Excellency or His Distinguished or His Honorable, is that I would not in any way put my own interest over and above the interest of the generality of the Nigerians. His own interest should be the interest of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that is the reason why we need all the governmental functionaries in the nation to understand these provisions I have enunciated above. And above that, it is very, very important for government to have a system whereby there should be inspectorate and symbiotic relationship between the three tiers of the government as per provisions of sections 2-3 of the Constitution. You should have a policy whereby a machinery that should have uniformity of focus, uniformity of understanding, philosophy of the national interest over and above any other interest. For example, all this idea of state police, all this idea of regional policing, all this idea of whatever you talk about it, refer to section 153 and see the way the Constitution really talks about it in the interest of the nation. National defense policy is there, national police policy is there, national security policy is there. Bearing in mind, however, that in Nigeria, you have this system whereby you have tiers of the government. So whatever the federal government would like to evolve, it should be in conjunction with the other tiers of the government, so that the policies will be able to cascade down to the bottom of it. The office of the secretary to the federal government should be able to really take into pivotal as far as that assignment is concerned, because there is a difference between office of the secretary to the government of the federation and office of the secretary to the federal government. Secretary to federal government is only answerable to only federal government. But when you are secretary to the government of the federation, it means it is your responsibility to harmonize the operations of the federal government, the operations of the state government, the operations of the local government. All of them should have uniformity of policy formulations, uniformity of policy executions, uniformity of policy satisfaction, so that at the end of it, the ultimate of it, as per provision of section 14, is that the common man should be satisfied with the way he is being governed. Nigeria should try as much as possible, if we take the provision of section 214 to 216 that talks about the responsibility of the police to ensure internal security, we should try as much as possible to tally that one with sections 218 to 219 and the provisions of section 36 of the Constitution. In other words, there should be arrangements whereby there should be rapid response to be quelling down any iota of insecurity or any iota of national disintegration. And at the same time, the judicature, in other words, the side of the judiciary, should be up and doing in support of this. Sections 230 to 320 of the Constitution has given the judicature enormous power to be able to be inflicting penalties. If you now go about the provision of section 36 of section 5 that talks about the technicality of everybody to be adjudged as clean as until really adjudicated by a competent court or law, will not go anywhere. It is the application of these technicalities that is making people that are perceived to be criminals to be going for one lack of clear evidence to be able to criminalize them. Nigeria should really, the government should be up and doing in penalizing criminalities. Whenever there are these type of problems, these type of upheavals, the security agency should be able to quickly fish out those that are the perpetrators of it. No matter how strong you are, no matter how powerful you are, no matter from whichever side of the country you are, Nigeria should be able to penalize him for the wrongdoing, because if you allow it, it's just like a small fire. When you just scratch it a little, you will be able to really use your hand and then finish it. But when you allow it to reach gargantuan level, it will be very difficult for even Atlantic Ocean water to even quench it. We have seen instances like I have given earlier on of various countries that because of their failure to manage crises that they are at the minute level, it raised to the issue of civil war, it is to the issue of genocide, it is to the issue of even some countries like Ottoman Empire have given completely wiped out of the horizon of the world. So government should see itself as an article of responsibility, as a seat of responsibility of trust on behalf of the entire 210 million Nigerians. No one single individual should suffer in Nigeria on account of one person hating him, on account of one person not liking his tribe or religion, because failure of us to really see copy from other countries. Look at the case of India, for example. India is a country whereby your neighbor will be able to come and congratulate you for you slaughtering what he normally worships. In other words, for you slaughtering a cow during your festivities. He will come and embrace you and congratulate you. India is more populated than Nigeria, having more number of tribes, having more number of religions, having more homogeneous complex societies in Nigeria. The same thing if you take the case of United States. So Nigerians should be able to be educated. The National Orientation Agency and the relevant governmental agency should be up and doing to educate the citizenry for them to understand that the ultimate reason for you to even be in existence is that you should come and be a vicegerent of God, representative of God, for you to transcend natural justice in between yourself and your relationship with your fellow human being, your relationship and that of animals, your relationship with the environment, your relationship with God Almighty, and your relationship with the trees, with even your own organs in yourself. You have a question to answer before God at the end of it. So everybody should consider himself as a truth, but it should start from the leadership. A feast gets written from the head. Leadership by example is what we want to see. People should not put primordial interest over and above the national interest. Like I said, if you take the provision of Section 15, for example, Section 15 subsection 2, for example, has said that it is mandatory on the government to bring about policies that will bring about all inclusiveness. Every citizen should be free to go to any part of the country to do his business, to do his earn his living there. As a matter of fact, you cannot even do it. Every successful politician must have him, who wants to go as a president from either the southern part must have his own vice from the northern part. A successful businessman cannot do it alone, because you have to think of other places where the environment is good for you to do your investments, for at the end of it for you to make your gain. So the cosmopolitan nature Nigeria has, God has really made Nigeria in such a way that you cannot do without another. The experience of the Civil War is enough. We don't want a repetition of that. And if all those people did not succeed in balkanizing Nigeria, I don't think these people of today can be able to balkanize Nigeria. Nigeria must remain united, resolutely united. Government should encourage good conduct and be given awards and recognitions to people that are promoting national inclusiveness, national unity, national peace, so that at the end of it, politics, especially that we are in, should be seen as the matriculation vehicle for bringing about elder statesmen, for bringing about people that preach the gospel of unity and understanding, not for it to be just a an instrument for self-enrichment. And we must try as much as possible to lower down the quantum of money that is being sunk into politics of Nigeria. Politics should not be seen as an investment. It should be seen as a national service. If you make it as investment, then that is what will bring about the greed, and that is what will bring about people looking at it, say it's only the people from so part of the country that are benefiting from the cake. Take the example of United States. There are many number of their presidents came from one particular state. Why? because they look at responsibilities for service as akin to service to God. They look at it as service to humanity instead of Nigeria that is looking at politics as investment. We should really try as much as possible to lower down the lucrativeness of politics, to lower down the contractocratic type of politics we are doing, whereby you invest in order for you to reap benefits. We should try to look at it more as service to humanity in the interest that at the end of it, when you are not alive, whosoever...
You heard from General Haruna, NTA President, and Mai Nasara. One other problem that tends to threaten peace and national integration in Nigeria is the problem of self, lack of shared values. Yet we say we are great people, good nation. How do you react to this?
Thank you so much. It is important that we should understand where we started and how we got to this very point. In 1973, there was this scheme, the National Youth Service Corps, which still exists till today. The government of Yakubu Gowon thought it wise that Nigerians should be properly integrated so that they will know that where they came from does not really matter, but what matters is that they are one indivisible and indissoluble entity. Now, it is important that Nigerians should go back to the yardstick of that entity called Nigeria, where we see ourselves as one. Like I said before in my opening salvo, Nigerians appreciate themselves more when they meet outside the shores of this country. For example, Nigerians meeting themselves in the US. If you're from Yoruba or from Igbo or from Hausa, you don't see the person as different. You see the person as your brother. In fact, that's the person you call your brother because he's the same country, he speaks the same language, the pidgin that we speak in Nigeria, and we eat the same type of food. So I think that we should try to internalize what we do outside the country in this country so that we will eventually see ourselves as one. For example, most Nigerians have lived outside their different areas of existence or where they were born. For example, somebody who was born in the East has stayed in the North and he speaks Hausa, and somebody born in the North has lived in the East and he speaks Igbo. So that level of unification should exist. Because I don't think what makes you different from the other person is because of where you were born. It is because you do the same thing the same way this other person does it. That is why we call ourselves brothers and sisters. So I believe that religion or ethnicity should not divide us, but we should share the values that eventually unite us, because according to the principle of holism, the whole is greater than some of its parts. There's no way we'll balkanize and eventually disintegrate this country and we'll get the same thing we have gotten, assuming we're one indivisible entity. So I still ascribe this very responsibility to every Nigerian. It is also the responsibility of government, as we know, but security and oneness of purpose, or that factor called unity, should be everybody's business. So if you see it as your own business, so you should be able to work in tandem with the government's prescription of unity. That means if you see someone doing something that is different, that is not typical of a Nigerian, which is antithetical to common unification process, you should be able to object. So I believe that Nigerians have this very attribute of always revolting when they see something that is evil. Nigerians are very resilient people, I said before, and they have the ability of internalizing and making everything to look comic. Like I always watch most of the Nigerian publications on social media, and I see that when things decide to be very hard for Nigerians, they change it to comedy, and eventually Nigerians are good at that. So if we can internalize these problems and see these problems as everybody's problem, then that means everybody can bring a solution that can be proffered to solve this problem. That means nobody should take stand aloof or take a bystander's approach to it, because every onlooker is either a coward or a threat according to Franz Fanon. So I believe Nigerians should come together as one indivisible entity to solve this problem, because there is nobody that can love Nigeria more than Nigerians themselves, despite what embers of discord that we hear, or the people who are fanning the embers of discord. So we do not think that that can help us. Instead, we should see where we can gain from this unity in diversity, because I believe that Nigerians have all it takes to become a very great nation. And if we can put these things in our own rostrum and then eventually try to replicate some of these advantages, we'll be able to propagate light and not darkness. Then again, it is important that our children should be taught how we all started and how we got to this very situation. Because if you have your own child that grows under your own roof, and you tell the person, for example, you are an Easterner, you tell the person, somebody from North is your brother or your sister, he will grow with that mentality. I remember in 1991, when Abuja became the nascent capital of Nigeria, I traveled to the North, and I stayed in the house of a Northerner. I didn't know him before, from Adam, and I stayed in his house, gave me food, gave me water to take my bath the next morning. I mean, that is brotherliness and brotherhood. So I believe that kind of fraternity should exist. We should try to replicate it over time, and people should begin to see it. My own father is still alive. He had many friends from the North. He speaks very fluent Hausa, and I believe that this is one unifying factor. I've met so many Northerners who speak Igbo, and the same way with Yoruba. So he believe in these things, and they work. I'm not saying that we do not have differences. That is not what I'm saying. But all I'm saying that there are more things that unite us than divide us. All we need to do is to find common ground to solve this problem, because we cannot go back where we started. I remember this war of 1970. It was an ill wind that blew nobody no good. So we shouldn't go back to the same thing that brought us this very low. So, I mean, we should internalize and eventually propagate these things to the children that are unborn children who eventually come to, embrace this very fact. Then again, it is important that people should know that they should never be allowed to allow their conscience to be mortgaged or kowtow to any monetary gratification that will make you to move away from your own place of abode to think that you should go and replicate crime or banditry elsewhere. No, that is not acceptable. It is not in consonance with our norms. So I believe that Nigerians should see that we are living as our own brother's keeper, and we should be able to see what is wrong with another person and try to offer a helping hand. So it is our own nation. Nobody can do it for us except we decide collectively from everybody from all walks of life to come together and help to lift this country beyond where it is. I know that Nigerians have excelled outside this country. I've lived in the United States for many years, in Europe for many years. I've taught there as a professor, and I know that most Nigerians, when they come there, they excel. You see, the situation in Nigeria is because we cannot come back with the same concept we have seen overseas to come and put them in a structure to help to lift our own structure above where it is today. If we can bring what we have learned or what we have practiced elsewhere, for example, let me try to bring something back home now. Nigerians go outside, they drive cars, and they see green light, they respect green light, they pass. They see red light, they stop. But here in Nigeria, most times, they see red light, they cross, and they pass. And because nobody can give them tickets, if the ticket comes to your house, some of these things, these are small traffic infractions, which should not, happen, because one thing can lead to the other. If somebody crosses a red light anywhere in US or Europe, of course, that is a very serious, offense, traffic offense. But here in Nigeria, most times you see people trying to claim right, thinking that they are above the law. I mean, nobody's above the law. The law is there. It's invisible, but it is very, very forceful and effective. So all I know that people can do it better in Nigeria if they try to internalize what we have learned outside. Then again, finally, what we should also understand is that nobody knows it all. No country is an Eldorado. If we think we can feature what happens in the United States here, Nigerian situation is different, far different from what happens in the United States. Like somebody made an allusion to what happened on January 6th. There was an attack on the Capitol. Of course, that eventually resulted in more entrenched democracy. Of course, we should know that democracy is is a collective game. The word democracy comes from two Greek words, the demos and kratos. Demos meaning the people and kratos meaning rule. That means the people's rule. So that means it is not only the government, but you, the populace. The populace also constitute those who can rule, because if you see what is wrong, you point it out. For example, the fourth estate or the press will also have to put things in perspective. Where government has erred, you say this is what is wrong. You should not allow any monetary gratification to dissuade you from doing your constitutionally informed responsibility of doing your job the right way. So I believe that we can do these things very well if we try to toe the line of those who have already founded this very country from inception.
Jehu Onyekwere Naji, Professor of International Law and Global Politics. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. Adeba Shitu, I just hope the signals are still up. If it's there, and can we be sure if the signal is there, please, from Ibadan via Zoom? Do we still have the signal? Are we up with Ibadan? What about Lagos? Is Lagos still up? Is Lagos still up? Okay, it looks those two signals have dropped, and I believe if they would have told them, thank you so much for being on the program. Back to General IBM Haruna. Dominance also threatens the peace and national integration of Nigeria. The 16th anniversary of the country talks about together forever. But some tribes or some ethnic groups appear to be more dominant than the other, and they play it. This makes a problem.
Yes, indeed, it is a problem. And
how can we solve it?
Well, first of all, it is exacerbated by the body language and utterances of our leaders. And the leaders create a psyche that creates the generality of the people to see themselves as first class or second class citizens or indigenous, settlers, and what have you. This class discrimination amongst the people created by the fact that we are diversified, but is the psyche created out of it by the leaders for political reasons or divide and rule tactics. I think that citizens should be viewed and treated in circumstances as equal citizens. They are equal as to their rights, equal as to their privileges in the class to which they're either professionals or engagements. And I think that the application of the law should be to citizens on equal basis. No one, as rightly mentioned earlier, should be above the law. And I think that they say when you go to Rome in those days, you behave like the Romans. But one cannot say if you come to Nigeria, you should behave like Nigerians of today, in the sense that Nigerians have not been given the opportunity to catch up with modern civilization, with the result that without water, without medical services adequate for the people, you cannot expect even Nigerians who come from England or from America to go to places, whether it is a marketplace or is a petrol station, and have easy, hygienic environment to ease themselves. So I think that the leaders must pursue a program that will uplift the sanity of the people, their discipline, their codes and their behaviors. I think most Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians, sometimes when you see them behave side by side with other people or citizens of other claims, I regret to say that those of us who have had the opportunity to have some training abroad and so on, you feel you are taken aback and feel very shameful. Well, looking some years back, I know what we had to go through in waging war against indiscipline. As a result, the culture of queuing, the culture of taking turns, but it's still there in many respects. That shows that the leadership have not grown this instinct of self-respect self-respect, self-restraint, because they create anxieties, they create lack of trust or confidence. Look at the change of registration of NIN. You can see the sorrow state of people who leave their homes 4 a.m., abandon their work, and in spite of COVID, they are anxious to get the registration, but no clear arrangement is there. And it is a pity.
Okay.
So I think we should try to level the class divide and treat citizens as equal citizens.
Okay. At this time, let me go to NUJ President, Chris Eziguzo, to tell him thank you so much for being part of the program tonight. It was nice having your time and sharing your thoughts with Nigerians on Tuesday Live. Thank you so much, President, for being on Tuesday Live.
Thank you for having me. The fact still remains that we remain firm believers in the unity and the continued existence of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I want to appeal to the political actors, the political class. You know, if you destroy the country, you are not going to have any country that you're going to lead, either as a legislator or as operator of the executive arm of government. Now, if you lose today, you wait tomorrow, you might be lucky. Let's not continue by our utterances, by our words, by our actions and inactions, continue to destroy the country just because it didn't favor us today. Let us continue to build that country of our dream. And for those who think the media is a platform to be used to continue to unleash division in the system, you've got to think again, because for us, we operate within the code of ethics of this profession, and the union will not hesitate in sanctioning any member found wanting in the course of discharging his duties as a professionals. We are professionals.
Thank you so much, President. And quickly to Nasara Gogo, thank you so much for being on Tuesday Live. We'll have you some other time. And
thank you very much. What I want to just say as a final is that it is all the problems we are having in the country.
Shitu, former Minister of Communications, we had a lot of challenge having him via Zoom from Ibadan, and also the president of Nigerian Guild of Editors, who joined us via Zoom in Lagos. We also had challenges having him smooth with us all through the program. Every person, thank you so much. On behalf of the NTA, always remember to support the NTA in the fight against rape, to be a star. Bye-bye.